One serene moment, two public figures. What started out as an ordinary interview unfolded into something nobody could have anticipated. For American, British, Canadian, and Australian viewers, this is not a story of headlines. It's about standing your ground when the world demands a performance. Press play to jump in. It was to be a typical late-night interview. Two professionals, a still stage, a discussion of art, but occasionally under the lights and giggles, something more rouses, something that won't remain silent. What occurs when a man renowned for elegance is pushed to the brink of decency, when religion is queried not in murmurs, but before the blinding light of cameras, and when the price of being yourself is turning your back, not receiving applause? This is not a tale of indignation, it's a moment, one that inquired, how far will you go to defend who you are? Let's start. What began as a straightforward promotional interview quickly became one of the most incendiary moments in TV history. Denzel Washington shocked everyone by storming off The Late Show with Stephen Colbert after being ambushed with surprise questions regarding his spirituality and politics. The crowd was left stunned, and the internet erupted with outrage. Things appeared normal at first. The Ed Sullivan Theater hummed with its typical pre-show energy. Fans were seating themselves, anticipating a laid-back evening and a pleasant celebrity interview. Denzel was present to discuss his new directorial effort, a highly emotional film focused on redemption and second chances. The film was already generating heavy Oscar talk, and this interview was an important stop on the press tour. But in the background, tensions were already building. Colbert's writing staff, according to individuals close to production, had spent the afternoon working on what they referred to as gotcha questions, designed to pin down Denzel on his widely known Christian faith and conservative politics. Colbert, believing that his viewers would be with him, had told producers he was willing to confront the narrative Denzel had been presenting in other interviews, according to reports. As familiar theme music filled the air and Colbert gave his characteristic biting monologue, all seemed normal. The audience chuckled at his political one-liners, applauded at the appropriate times, and settled in for what they believed would be a typical, humorous hour of late-night television. But behind the scenes, Denzel's publicist was getting anxious. She had heard Colbert run through some of his more challenging questions, and she wasn't pleased with where things were going. When Colbert finally introduced Denzel, the audience blew into applause. Washington strode on stage with his usual calm and warmth, flashing his familiar smile as he shook hands with Colbert and sat down. The interview started off well. They had a few chuckles, discussed the new movie, and even kidded a little bit about Denzel's notoriously serious work ethic. It was endearing late-night charisma. Then Colbert changed. "So Denzel," he began, reclining slightly, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "This new movie deals with some pretty heavy themes, redemption, forgiveness. Because of your own religious background, I have to ask, how much did your personal belief influence your own work on this role?" Denzel nodded, his demeanor reflective. His body stayed loose, but you could sense he was completely there. "Stephen, well," he started, "I believe faith, whatever shape it takes for an individual, provides us with a means of understanding forgiveness. The man I portray, he's committed actual errors, serious ones, but he's attempting to get back to the individual he once was prior to when life became complicated." A gentle murmur of gratitude rolled across the gathering. It was that kind of reflective, balanced response folks had grown accustomed to hearing from Denzel Washington, one of Hollywood's most respected, most consistent voices. But Colbert wasn't quite finished yet. "Right, but let's go a little deeper," he said, his own tone changing ever so slightly. "You've written a lot about your Christian faith over the years, and I admire that. But don't you think there's a bit of irony here? I mean, this is Hollywood, a city founded on fantasy and make-believe. Isn't it a little peculiar when actors begin giving the lecture to audiences about morals?" A fleeting look of puzzlement crossed Denzel's face. This was not the type of question he had been instructed to anticipate. Backstage, his publicist braced himself, observing the exchange with increasing alarm. "I wouldn't say it's preaching," Denzel responded quietly, carefully choosing his words. "I think that when you've been blessed with a platform, you have an obligation to people to be honest with who you are. I don't shove my beliefs down people's throats, but I'm not going to hide them either. People can take what resonates with them and disregard what doesn't." Colbert inched forward slightly, feeling like he sensed an opening. "But here's where I think you're doing something interesting. And forgive me if I'm mistaken," he went on. "You've been kind of muted when it comes to some of the more contentious issues your religious community tends to take bold positions on. Marriage equality, women's reproductive rights, the place of religion in government. Some might say that's having it both ways, splitting the moral capital of religion without confronting the tough conversations that go along with it. The studio crowd changed. The room felt very quiet. This wasn't the good-natured sparring they had come to expect from late-night television. Denzel's jaw went tight a fraction of an inch, but his voice remained even. "I believe you are misunderstanding something pretty fundamental, Stephen," he said calmly. "My religion instructs me to love, not judge. When I speak of values, I'm speaking of dignity, work, providing for your family. I'm not a politician, and I'm not requesting anyone to live according to my religion." But Colbert wasn't giving up. And indeed, Denzel's unflinching responses only seemed to rile him more. "Come on," he urged. "You attend church weekly. I know that. You can't tell me these issues never get discussed, that your minister doesn't discuss gay marriage or abortion. And when he does, you either agree or don't. Remaining silent is still a choice, right?" The camera picked up the change in Denzel's expression. That easy, smiling face was gone. In its place was something harder, more guarded. "Are you interviewing me about my movie?" he said, his voice still even. "Or are you just attempting to provoke me into taking political positions so that you can have a viral video?" Some uneasy laughter crossed the room. People sensed that the atmosphere had shifted, but didn't know how to react. But Colbert didn't flinch. If anything, the tension seemed to energize him. "I'm just trying to have a real conversation with a person who has a voice that counts," he said. "Look, I have a lot of respect for your work. I believe you're one of the best actors of our generation. But when you talk about faith and values in interviews," Colbert went on, "when you produce movies about redemption and second chances, don't you think the audience has a right to know where you actually stand on the issues that count?" Denzel's jaw clenched. His hands clasped the arms of his chair, firm but tight. "I do stand," Denzel said. "Concerns that are important to who?" he asked, his tone stern. "To you, to your readers? Or to the millions of Americans who simply want to see a worthwhile movie and perhaps exit the theater feeling the world isn't entirely collapsing?" "To everyone," Colbert shot back. "We're living in unprecedented times. Democracy is being tested. Women's rights are under threat. LGBTQ+ Americans are facing new discrimination. When someone like you, someone with real influence, stays silent while talking about morals and faith, people are going to have questions." The air in the studio was heavy now. Denzel's publicist had edged out to the curtain's edge, phone at hand, prepared to intervene. Producers in the control booth shared apprehensive glances. "Moral authority," Denzel responded, his tone rising for the first time. "I have never taken moral authority over anybody. I speak about my life, what's carried me through difficult times. I attempt to make movies that count. But what you're doing here, you're attempting to pin me down politically. For what? So you can gain points with your constituency? So you have a clip that goes viral online." Colbert's smooth cadence was beginning to break. The amiable, inquiring host now resembled a prosecutor. "I'm trying to hold you accountable," he continued to insist. "You speak of faith and values but refuse to take a stand on the greatest moral questions of our day. What do you think that sends?" Denzel leaned in a bit, his tone more piercing now, demonstrating a silent authority that caused some of the audience members to shift uncomfortably in their seats. "You want to know what the message sends?" he asked. "It sends that perhaps, person's relationship with God and their conscience about right and wrong does not have to align neatly with your political boxes. Perhaps that some of us believe doing good, being hardworking, and treating others with respect is more important than checking the correct ideological boxes for a late-night television host." The room boomed, but not in agreement. Some audience members clapped enthusiastically. Others sat frozen in silence. A few looked visibly uncomfortable with how the conversation had spiraled. Colbert's face flushed red. "So what, you're saying that staying neutral on civil rights is the same as treating people with respect?" That was the breaking point. Denzel stood up. Calm was replaced by something rawer, his composure finally slipping. "I'm saying," Denzel replied, his voice steady but firm, "that ambushing a guest, someone who showed up in good faith to talk about their work, and trying to force them into political debates they never agreed to, then lecturing them about moral responsibility, that's not treating someone with respect." The audience gasped out loud. This was no longer an interview. This was a confrontation, pure and simple, and everyone in the studio could sense it spinning out of control. Colbert, recognizing he might have gone too far, appeared cornered. But rather than taking a step back, he doubled down. "Take a seat, Denzel," he snapped. "We're having a dialogue here. This sidestepping is precisely what I'm referring to. When someone poses you genuine questions, You turn it into something about me rather than responding. But Denzel didn't sit. He stood up straight, his entire 6 feet commanding the stage in a way that made Colbert appear noticeably smaller behind his desk. The substance, Denzel said, staring down the host. The substance is that you brought me here under false pretenses. Your people told my people this was about the movie, but instead you're trying to make me out to be some sort of political punching bag. A chill entered Colbert's body, his tone heavy with sarcasm. Oh, come on, he said. You're a public figure with hundreds of millions of dollars. You can take a few tough questions. Or are you claiming your faith only functions when everybody's kissing up to you? The shot hit its mark. Denzel's gaze hardened. There was a sudden glint of something keener, dangerous. Your faith? He replied deliberately. My faith instructed me to turn the other cheek, Stephen. But it also instructed me not to throw pearls before swine. They strike like a blow. Colbert's face flushed red and then went sheet white. His mouth hung open. The audience was confused. Some gasped, some applauded, a few of each. Did you just call me a swine on my own show? Colbert's voice shook, his fingers white-knuckling the cue cards on the podium. Denzel did not shout. He did not have to. I called it as I see it, he said. You're sitting there, safely behind your desk, attempting to dismantle someone's character. Not for truth, not for substance, but for entertainment. What would you call that? Chaos reigned in the control booth. The executive producer was frantically flagging to cut to commercial. But Colbert dismissed him. He wasn't about to surrender the moment yet, his ego wounded, so his judgment befogged by frustration. I call it journalism, Colbert snapped. I call it holding the powerful accountable. You strut around Hollywood acting like you're the moral authority, making films about forgiveness and redemption. But mum, on the issues that actually affect people's lives, that's not faith. That's cowardice masquerading as wisdom. The word cowardice stung like a slap. It seemed to hang in midair, hard and repulsive. Denzel took a step closer to the desk, and suddenly he seemed to occupy the entire stage. Cowardice? Denzel repeated, taking just a step forward. Allow me to show you what cowardice is, Stephen. His voice was soft, but there was a steel edge to it. Cowardice is hiding behind comedy when you want to take someone down. Cowardice is taking your stage to bully guests who didn't come here to be taken apart. What you're doing right now, is cowardice. A few stood up too, not sure if what they were seeing was a dramatic moment or something totally off the mark. The tension was palpable, almost heavy. The familiar, relaxed flow of a late-night show had been broken. Colbert remained standing behind his desk, attempting to meet Denzel's presence, but no comparison existed. Still, he brusquely defied it. I'm not hiding behind anything, Colbert retorted. I'm asking you straightforward questions about your faith, about your duty as a public figure. If you can't do that, perhaps you shouldn't be giving interviews. Denzel's response was low and cold. Perhaps I shouldn't, he said. Perhaps I should just work with people who are professionals, who know the difference between an interview and an interrogation. Colbert's facade cracked wide open. His voice climbed, dry and furious. Professional? You call avoiding every significant question by playing the morality card professional? You call dodging behind your faith as an excuse not to discuss tough subjects' integrity? Denzel didn't blink. His voice was cold now, calm, calculated. I think treating your guest with basic human decency is professional, he said. I think sticking to the agreement your producers made, that is professional. What you're doing right now, it's not journalism, Stephen. It's a hit job with better lighting. The words hit hard. The accusation of acting in bad faith struck a nerve. Colbert's typical demeanor was absent now, peeled away to the core. What appeared underneath wasn't witty or calm, but hurt and enraged. A hit job, he retorted, his voice rising once more. You made the decision to fuck with me on my show. Nobody compelled you. If you can't deal with actual questions about actual issues, perhaps you're best suited for entertainment tonight, not a serious stage. His tone dripped with disdain. Denzel took a step back, not out of fear, but out of disgust. His voice did not falter. Real questions? He asked, incredulous in his tone. Is that what you call this? 15 minutes of attempting to pin me down to political sound bites that bear no resemblance to my work. You've attacked my faith, my integrity, my character, all while playing at this high-minded pursuit of truth. Colbert was coming apart now. His voice broke, not with nerves, but with tightly wrapped-up rage. I'm not acting, he bit out. I'm attempting to receive honest answers from a person who's spent decades playing both sides. You desire the respect that accompanies being a moral voice, but you don't desire the heat that comes from taking a true stand. The room was utterly still now. No applause, no laughter, just the quiet hum of the cameras and the sound of two men engaged in a confrontation that neither of them had anticipated, but neither could leave behind. Denzel looked around at the crowd. Everyone else seemed shocked, some not knowing where to meet eyes were, others shaken. Then he looked back at Colbert, and this time there was something almost pitiful in his gaze. "You know what, Stephen?" he said softly. "You're right on one thing. I do want respect. But where we differ is I attempt to earn it. Through my work, through the manner in which I treat others, through the example I attempt to set." His eyes never left the host. "You appear to believe you can just command it by tearing down other individuals." Colbert's voice shook now, whatever professionalism remained falling away. "Don't you dare talk to me about respect," he said. "You've been talking down to me since you came out here playing like you're too good for actual questions," Colbert said, his voice increasing. Denzel shook his head slowly. "Only one thing I'm too good for is this," he told her. "This ambush, this performance, this attempt to pull me into your political stage show. I came here to discuss a film that is important to me, and instead you made it into whatever this is." Colbert was coming apart, his responses no longer measured, merely raw and defensive. "This is accountability," he snarled. "This is what you get when you try to have your cake and eat it too. You can't present yourself as a moral leader and then shut up on every important issue." "Moral leader?" Denzel repeated, his voice strained, a combination of incredulity and raw wariness. "I never said I was anyone's leader. I'm an actor, a director, and yes, I'm a man of faith, but that doesn't seem to suffice for you, does it? You've made up your mind that I either must be your ideal political puppet or your bad guy." The conflict had come to a head. Their voices resounded through the quiet studio as if swords were clashing. Colbert, realizing he was losing his own program, made a final desperate move to win the day. "Fine, go away," he spat. "Prove my point. Show everybody what happens when somebody asks you tough questions. Run back to your soft interviews and agreeable sound bites." Denzel paused, his hand on the back of his chair. For a split second, it seemed like he was going to shoot back with the same anger. But instead he breathed, adjusted his jacket, and turned squarely to the camera. "You know what, Stephen? You're dead on. I am going to walk away, not because I am incapable of fielding tough questions, but because I respect myself too much to continue engaging in this circus." His voice was calm, measured, and somehow more compelling than any tantrum could have been. The camera continued to roll, doubtful what else to do, while Washington spoke to the audience at home. "To everyone watching tonight who tuned in, hoping to hear about a film that is about forgiveness and second chances, I'm sorry this is what you had to see instead. The movie opens Friday. I hope you'll judge it on its own merits." Colbert, realizing he was being completely upstaged on his own stage, tried to interrupt. "Oh, so now you're using my show to promote your movie after calling me a swine?" Denzel turned back to him. The look he gave could have frozen fire. "I'm acting like professionals, Stephen. I'm keeping my promise I made to the people who worked hard on this movie, even if you could not keep your promise to do a respectful interview." Colbert was completely coming undone now. His voice shook with anger. "Respectful? You've been holier than thou since the moment you sat down, like you're too good for politics, and the rest of us have to survive in the real world." Denzel's tranquility cracked for the first time. His tone grew louder, not in anger but in conviction. "The real world," he said, "the real world is Mount Vernon, where I was raised poor. The real world and where I was taught a man's word is his word. The real world is where people treat each other with respect, even when they don't get along. This isn't the real world, Stephen. This is the bubble you've created for yourself, where ambushing guests is considered courage." The studio was quiet, absolutely quiet. Some of the audience were looking visibly shocked. Others crept forward, their eyes wide, utterly captivated by what they were seeing. It was something never before witnessed on a late-night set. On sensing the whole room slipping from him, and Colbert made a last desperate flail. "Fine, go, but don't think you are going to crawl back the next time you want publicity for a film. And don't play this as a heroic thing for walking away from tough questions." Denzel paused mid-step. Slowly he turned back around. His expression was serene, but something deeper moved behind his eyes. Sorrow, maybe. Something hard. "Hero, Stephen?" he said softly. "I'm not attempting to be a hero. Often it's the moments that alter us most that arrive without applause or closure. Instead, in the midst of struggle, when we opt for dignity rather than pride, mercy over control, we all have moments when we're misunderstood, confronted, or pressed to the edge. And in those instances, it isn't about winning, it's about remaining who we are. This tale reminds us that grace in the midst of pressure is not weakness, it's strength. That forgiveness, boundaries, and self-respect can go together. And that even in a world filled with opinion, there is quiet strength in walking away with your values in hand. Perhaps today is a good day to recall what truly matters.